Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. A lot to talk about today, a lot of cards in our video. Many speculated that the discovery of the One Ring would cause card prices to drop, but instead many key cards from Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth are spiking, or at least holding steady this week. Now there are a lot of cards dipping too. Most of those are older cards, many reserve list cards. You're going to see that in the video. Again, our threshold today will be $2. All the cards we talk about today will be moving at least $2 up or down. And quickly, a couple things. First off, I do want to say thank you to some viewers who gave super thanks tips during last weekend's video. Those viewers are Alex Vazlow, Alpal8319, and Todd Branch. Thank you all for the super thanks tips. It means a lot to me. Helps the channel tremendously. Can't thank you enough. Appreciate all that support. And secondly, remember, if you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can pre-order Commander Masters products there, and preview season is about to start for that set. I'm very excited to see what's in it. But if you're not interested in that, you can also now pre-order Wilds of Eldraine. They have that up on their website too. Plus, they have a whole lot of other stuff on their site. Remember, if your order's over $100 or it consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use the Heroes promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated, so thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. We'll begin with the Standard Legal Spotlight. This is where we look at the Standard Legal cards moving the most this week, so let's see what's happening there. First is a card moving down, Phyrexian Obliterator from the list. It goes down 402 this week to 899. This is a solid Commander card, but it has been soft since its reprinting in Phyrexia LB1 introduced a ton of new copies into the marketplace. Wedding Announcement from Innistrad Double Feature goes up 237 this week to 1571. This harder to find copy of a highly played card is jumping this week. Watch out for those sets that quote-unquote nobody likes. In Standard, this is in Orzhov Control, Esper Legends, and much more. Pioneer, this is in Mono White Humans, Azorius Spirits, and more there. And this also gets a little Commander play. And the last card in this section is Ruins Recluse. This is up 311 this week to 638. So this is one of the March of the Machine Jumpstart cards, so it is harder to find than your typical uncommon. It's hot now because it's a unique spider. It's been in Commander builds like Finn the Fangbearer, but now there is a new legendary spider from Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth that many are building Commander decks around, Shelob, Child of Ungoliant, and players are picking this card up to put in those builds. In fact, this was mentioned as a card you might want in a Shelob Commander deck on an episode of the Command Zone podcast this week, and that could have brought some more attention to the card. And just like that, it is time for the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. Let's take a look at the first card. Mana Confluence from Journey into Nyx. It goes down $2 to $37.97 this week. This does see a little modern play, but a ton of play in Pioneer and Commander. It is soft now though, because many think that this could be reprinted in Commander Masters. And that is a running theme in today's video. A lot of cards are either dipping or staying steady because players are afraid to buy into them without knowing what's in Commander Masters. Next we have Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. This is from Keldheim. It's going down 213 to 48.37. Solid Commander card that is in many builds, including a Traxa Praetor's Voice at times. But the card did jump a lot when that strategy was getting a ton of support a few months ago. Now the market is starting to move on a little bit. Plus, this was reprinted as one of the concept Praetors in Phyrexia LB1. Gisela the Broken Blade from Eldritch Moon is the last card moving down in this section today. It's down $268 to $22. Now, the card sees a fair amount of Commander play, but it hasn't been reprinted since From the Vault Transform, leading some to think it could show up in Commander Masters, and that is causing players to stay away for now. Next is Loth Spider Queen from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. This is up 225 to 644 this week. This is another card seeing increased Commander play in Shelob Child of Ungoliant builds, but to a lesser degree, I am seeing this index around another new card from Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth, the Balrog Durin's Bane. But Shelob is the key driver here. In fact, the Command Zone podcast mentioned that this card should be included in those builds this week. Combat Celebrant. This is the new copy from Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth's Riders of Rohan Commander deck. It goes up 244 to 637 as it tries to find its price point. It is a solid Commander card. It's found in a number of fresh builds around cards from that deck, of course, but it's also seeing Commander play around a card from the main set, Aragorn the Uniter. Door of Destinies, and this too is a reprinted copy found in the Riders of Rohan Commander deck. This card's looking for its price point as well, as it goes up $4.43 to $10.05. It's a good commander card found in some fresh builds around cards again from that deck, but also a couple from the main set too. Aragorn the Uniter, and Shelob, Child of Ungoliant. Kiora, Best of the Sea God, is next. It goes up $5.58 to $13.90. This saw a little commander play in different builds, including Kiora, Sovereign of the Deep, for example, but now it is seeing a lot more commander play thanks to Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. Many players are getting this for their saga builds around Tom Bombadil. And to a lesser degree, I have seen this in some Goldberry River Daughter decks, but Tom is the real catalyst here. As a matter of fact, Tolarian Community College did a video about building around Tom this week, and they showed a budget version of the deck and an upgraded version. This card was in the upgraded version. Ishkana Graf Widow, this is the one from the list. It goes up $9 this week to $15. So this list copy dried up online over the course of the week. I would expect this one to adjust down and the Eldritch Moon one to adjust up, meet closer to the middle eventually. At the end of the day though, this is another card jumping because it's getting more commander play in Shelob, Child of Ungoliant builds. This was also mentioned as a card you want to play in that build on the Command Zone podcast this week. And the last card in this section is Cauldron Familiar. The Throne of Eldraine copy is up $3.81 to $6.05. The Jumpstart copy, though, is up $11.56 to $13.99. Although the Jumpstart copies dried up online, which caused it to spike hard, I would expect the numbers to meet in the middle somewhere soon. So when it comes to gameplay, in Pioneer, this is in Sacrifice builds, and the Rakdos Sacrifice deck is one of the highest played decks in the meta right now. Those typically run 3 copies of this. Modern and Commander are the real catalyst for the jump though this week. Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth brought support for food strategies, and this is in Modern Asmo Food. That deck's getting more play now thanks to a new card, Samwise Gamgee. Cauldron Familiar combos with Samwise as well as Viscera Seer. You're also seeing this played in Lonis combo decks with Samwise Gamgee, and a couple other new cards, Delighted Halfling and the Shire. When it comes to the Commander, many want this card to upgrade one of the new Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth Commander decks, Food and Fellowship. It's also in fresh builds around some cards from there. First being the 2 sets of partner commanders, Frodo Adventurous Hobbit and Sam Loyal Attendant, as well as Merry Warden of Isengard and Pippin Warden of Isengard, but it's also new builds around Bilbo Birthday Celebrant from there too. And as you can see, all this new play is impacting the price heavily. Alright, here's where things get really out of hand, the Modern Legal Spotlight. A lot of cards to talk about, so let's just jump in. Stoneforge Mystic from Double Masters. This is down $2.05 to $28.15. The card gets a good amount of Modern, Legacy, and Commander play, but it was reprinted earlier this year in the Artist Series Rebecca Gay Secret Lair, and some think it could show up in Commander Masters too. Batwing Broom from Arch Enemies, down $2.11 to $2.69. This copy has been turbulent due to having only a small presence online. The card jumped recently, and now we're seeing it retract. It does get a small amount of Commander play in some different builds. Cavern of Souls, this is the one from Ultimate Masters. It goes down $2.25 to $52.61. This gets plenty of play in Modern, Legacy, Vintage, and Commander, but the previous copies have been cold now that it has been reprinted in Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth's Realms and Relics subset. A quick note about the subset, it will not make cards legal in Modern if they were not already legal there, but it does contain some spicy reprints of well-known cards that are getting the Lord of the Rings treatment. Realms and Relics cards are found in collector boosters and non-foil, and in draft set and collector booster displays as traditional Surge foil box toppers. Right now their prices are all over the place, so it'll be interesting to see where they eventually land, and where the previous copies land as well. Flooded Strand from Onslaught is down $2.28 to $84.57. Fetchlands see a ton of play in Modern, Legacy, and Commander. Some like this one even have a presence in Vintage, but this original copy is cold this week. These Onslaught Fetchlands were reprinted in Khans of Tarkir, but that was their last non-premium reprint, leading some to believe that they may show up in a product sooner than later, perhaps even Commander Masters. Blightsteel Colossus from Double Masters is down $2.30 to $30.39. This is a solid Commander card, but it has been reprinted in the list now for 3 consecutive sets with the release of Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. But there is more than meets the eye to this price drop because it was also recently reprinted in the Transformers Optimus Prime vs. Megatron Secret Lair. Doubling Season from Ravnica, City of Guilds. It goes down $2.52 this week to $85.14. You know this is a huge commander card in lots of decks, including some popular new ones, so why is this still so soft? Because many are anticipating a reprinted Commander Masters. We'll have to see if it happens. Elish Norn Grand Cenobite from Iconic Masters goes down $2.55 this week to $20.58. This continues to be a popular commander card, but it has been cooled off by a recent reprinting. It was reprinted in the March of the Machine Multiverse Legends subset. Sword of Feast and Famine, the modern event deck copy is down $2.22 to $37.64. The Mirrodin Besieged copy is down $2.58 to $35.99. Recently, Wizards completed the sword cycle with the Sword of Once and Future. When that happened, there was some additional interest in the other swords, but now this one is retracting some as the market starts to move on. It is a very solid commander card. Some think it could even show up in Commander Masters, and they're holding off on making the purchase. Jace the Mind Sculptor from Eternal Masters down $2.62 this week to $29.99. Wow. This one-time $140 card just does not get the same amount of play it used to. Metas have changed and new cards have come along to take some of its slots in decks. The only recent reprinting of this is the Pro Tour Secret Lair copy that you can only get if you play in the Pro Tour this year, and if you top 16 you get a foil. Don't think that printing is having a big impact on this price though. Now the card still sees play though in Modern, Legacy, and Commander, but just not in the numbers that it did a few years ago. Polluted Delta from Onslaught, here's another original fetch land moving down for the same reasons we discussed earlier. It's down $2.62 to $89. Blood Moon from the Dark is down $3.18 to $85.25. This original copy of Blood Moon was close to $200 at the beginning of 2021. It does still see a lot of Modern play and some Legacy and Commander play too, but since the start of 2023, however, a lot of investors and resellers have gotten out of the collectibles market, including Magic. And players know they can get a much cheaper copy if they just go ahead and pick up a reprint. In fact, this is just one of many cards from the Dark that are moving down this week. You're going to see some later in the video too. Skithiryx the Blight Dragon. This is the one from the list. It goes down $4.35 to $15.08. This card remains cold, good commander card, but it was reprinted in the Multiverse Legends subset in March of the Machine, which has cooled off previous copies. Alright, time for the modern legal cards that are moving up, beginning with Gandalf the White. It goes up $2.03 this week to $14.18. So this is shaping up to be a solid commander card and combo enabler in the format. We have seen cards that do similar things before, but this one is a legendary creature, so it can be your commander, and many players are giving it a try there. It's also in the 99 of a number of builds, old and new too. I see many getting this to upgrade Food and Fellowship. Others are putting in fresh builds around the partner commanders from there, Frodo Adventurous Hobbits and Sam Loyal Attendant. It's also in commander builds around some cards from the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth main set, like Aragorn the Uniter, Samwise Gamgee, and more. Palantir of Orthanc is next. It's up $2.41 this week to $10.75. Many are getting this to upgrade a couple of the new commander decks, the Hosts of Mordor and Elven Council, or to add it to fresh builds around a few cards from those decks. Sauron Lord of the Rings, Saruman the White Hand, and Lord of the Nazgul from the Hosts of Mordor deck, as well as Galadriel Elven Queen from Elven Council. This is also found in commander builds around several cards from the main set, like Sauron the Dark Lord, Saruman of Many Colors, and more. Fury is next. It's up $2.52 to $38.79. This is a huge modern card. It's found in many different decks, and it gets a good amount of Legacy and Vintage play too, only a tad bit of commander play. Basically, this whole cycle is highly played, and since Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth is shaking the modern meta up, it's putting demand on some of these type of cards that are in a lot of different decks. That's because some players are getting into Modern for the first time, they might be building a new deck from scratch, or the ones that are already in Modern might have to update and change their decks some. Keep an eye on this card and others from the cycle in coming weeks. In fact, there's another one coming up in this video. Tireless Provisioner is next. This is the copy though from the Food and Fellowship Commander deck. It goes up $2.97 to $4.65. It is still trying to find its price point, but it has been a highly played commander card in a lot of builds for a while now. Sure, it's in fresh decks around cards from Food and Fellowship, but you also see this in many other new commander builds. A couple examples are Smeagol Helpful Guide and Galadriel of Lothlorien. Keep in mind though that this card was also recently reprinted in the March of the Machine Tinker Time commander deck, as well as the Cute to Brute Secret Lair commander deck. And it was just removed from the list subset with Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth, but it was there for 5 previous sets. Living End from Time Spiral. This goes up $3.74 this week to $10.18. The Living End Modern deck is getting a boost from a couple new Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth cards, Generous Ent and Oliphant. Right now, these decks are performing well in the evolving meta. We'll have to see if that maintains. This also sees a little commander play, but Modern is the key driver this time. Aragorn the Uniter is up $3.81 to $11.48. This is turning out to be a popular commander choice out of the new set early on, and it's also in the 99 of a few builds like Joda the Unifier, for example. Last March of the Ents is up $4.19 to $17.06. This is getting a good amount of commander play already in several decks old and new, like Shelob Child of Ungoliant, Van Gorn Tree Shepherd, and more. Also, I'm seeing some getting this to upgrade Food and Fellowship, or to put it in fresh builds around a card from there, Treebeard Gracious Host. Lotho Corrupt Sheriff is up $4.33 to $6.99. Aspiring Spike was streaming a modern Orzhov Lotho Corrupt Sheriff deck this week, and the build has been getting a lot of attention. We'll have to see again if it can maintain long term as this meta evolves, but right now a lot of people are interested in it. This is also getting a lot of play in Commander though too. I see many players getting this to upgrade Food and Fellowship, or adding it to fresh builds around cards from there, like Frodo Adventurous Hobbit and Sam Loyal Attendant, as well as Merry Warden of Isengard and Pippin Warden of Isengard again. It's also many other Commander builds though too, like Saruman of Many Colors, and Frodo Sauron's Bane, both from the main set. Good grief. Grief is up $5.16 to $23.65, and here's another card from that cycle going up. It sees a lot of modern play. In fact, it's in the Living End build we were discussing earlier, and there were 4 copies of this in the Orzhov Lotho Corrupt Sheriff deck that Aspiring Spike was playing on stream this week. This also gets Legacy and Vintage play, plus it shows up occasionally in Commander. In Legacy, it's in those Reanimator decks that recently were pushed by Atraxa Grand Unifier. That build may have softened the supply in the market. Now Modern is just pushing the spike. Witch King, Bringer of Ruin, up $5.37 this week to $17.24, and this is one of the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth starter kit cards. And of course, it is getting more commander play now because it is a Wraith. Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth is bringing support for the tribe, and commander players are there for it. Many are getting this to upgrade the Hosts of Mordor deck. It's also in fresh builds though around a card from there, Lord of the Nazgul. To a lesser degree, it's also in some other commander decks around cards from the deck, Sauron Lord of the Rings and Saruman the White Hand. It's also in builds around some cards from the main set, Sauron the Dark Lord, Sauron the Necromancer, and more. But the biggest catalyst for this price increase truly is Lord of the Nazgul. Next we have Sauron the Dark Lord, up $6.24 to $20. This has quickly become the most popular choice to build a new commander deck around from the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth main set. It's also being picked up to upgrade the Hosts of Mordor commander deck, and some are adding this to fresh builds around Sauron Lord of the Rings and Saruman the White Hand from there. This was also mentioned in the Command Zone podcast this week, which again could have brought some more attention to it. Alright, here we go, Nazgul. And there are 9 different pieces of art for this card. This week, 8 of the 9 are climbing more than $2, and the 9th one came close. So let me pull the prices up for you. I won't read through all these, but they range from up $261 to $15.99 to up $658 to $19.96. So this is an uncommon, but it breaks the deck limitation rule, so you can have 9 of these in a deck. So that's going to put more demand on this. Speaking of demand, why do players want it? Well, you guessed it. Lord of the Nazgul. Again, so many players are building Wraith builds around that card. Sure, some players are picking this up as an upgrade to the Hosts of Mordor, and others are putting it in fresh builds around Sauron Lord of the Rings and Saruman the White Hand from there. But again, most of these are going in fresh Lord of the Nazgul builds. Aside from that though, this is in other commander decks around cards from the main set too. Sauron the Dark Lord, Smeagol Helpful Guide, Frodo Sauron's Bane, and more. In many cases, foils of this card have been hot too. For example, this one was moving quite a bit this week. The copy that you see on the screen is up $10.91 to $36.82. Oh, we're not done yet. Delighted Halfling is up $7 to $21.99, and this one is already having a big impact on Modern. It is in Omnith builds, Yawgmoth, and more there. And yes, it's seeing a lot of commander play as well. Many are getting this to upgrade Food and Fellowship, plus players are adding this to fresh builds around a number of cards from there. Again, the 2 sets of partner commanders, Frodo Adventurous Hobbit and Sam Loyal Attendant, as well as Merry Warden of Isengard and Pippin Warden of Isengard. And yes, some are putting this in Bilbo Birthday Celebrant decks, set cards from there too. Plus it is in a number of commander builds around cards from the main sets like Aragorn the Uniter, Tom Bombadil, and more. Orcish Bowmasters, this is up $7.76 to $43. and this is already having a big impact on a number of formats. In Modern, it's in Golgari's Sacrifice, Rakdos Midrange, and more, including that Orzhov Lotho Corrupt Sheriff deck that Aspiring Spike played this week. Orcish Bowmasters is also seeing a lot of Legacy and Commander play too. In Legacy, this is in a bunch of decks already. Grixis Tempo, Death Shadow, and more. In Commander, it's quickly becoming a top creature in CEDH, and when it comes to regular Commander, the Rules Committee have already said they're keeping an eye on this card due to its power level. Could it see a ban in the future? Well, time will tell. Right now, players are picking this up to upgrade both the Hosts of Mordor and Food and Fellowship Commander decks. Plus, they're adding this to fresh builds around cards from there like Sauron, Lord of the Rings, Saruman the White Hand, and Lord of the Nazgul from the Hosts of Mordor, as well as the partner commanders Frodo Adventurous Hobbit and Sam Loyal Attendant from Food and Fellowship. Additionally, this is in some other commander builds around cards from the main set, Sauron the Dark Lord, Saruman of Many Colors, and more. Witch King of Angmar is our last card in this never-ending Modern Legal Spotlight. It goes up $9.80 to $16.35. Here is another key wraith that many want to upgrade the Hosts of Mordor commander deck or put in fresh builds around cards like Sauron, Lord of the Rings, Saruman the White Hand, but most importantly, Lord of the Nazgul. Others are getting this though to upgrade Food and Fellowship, and they're putting in fresh builds around Frodo Adventurous Hobbit and Sam Loyal Attendant from there. You're also seeing this in other commander decks, including some based around cards from the main set, Sauron the Dark Lord, Smeagol Helpful Guide, and more. I've even seen this used as a commander, but the majority of play is in those Sauron the Dark Lord and of course Lord of the Nazgul builds. I never thought we'd get here, but it is time for our salute to all Eternal formats, but mostly Commander. This is the Eternal Spotlight. Now obviously not every card in this section is going to be legal in every Eternal format, but none of these cards are legal in Standard, Pioneer, or Modern. We'll start with the ones going down. Tymna the Weaver from Commander 2016. This copy only comes in foil. It goes down 201 to 27.97. Very popular partner commander, but since it only has been given an etched foil reprinting in Commander Legends, some think it may show up in Commander Masters, so they're steering clear. Tropical Island from Revised is down 202 to 520.20, so this is a very small percentage decrease, but a lot of these Revised dual lands are dropping again this week, so I thought it was worth mentioning this, even if it's basically staying stable. Like I've said for a number of weeks now, the Revised dual lands have had a hard time finding their price point since the 30th anniversary edition was announced and subsequently released. When it comes to gameplay though, of course they see play wherever they're legal. Demonic Tutor, this is the one from Dual Decks Anthology. It goes down $205 to $45. Highly played tutor in Vintage and Commander. Copies of this card have been hot, but now in the shadow of Commander Masters, a lot of players are backing off in case it does show up as a reprint there. Show and Tell from Urza Saga down $235 to $49.99. This spiked not too long ago due to being in Legacy decks pushed by Atraxa Grand Unifier. This week though, it continues to retract. Season of the Witch down $240 to $30.93. This reserve list card from the Dark had a peak of almost $90 at the end of March 2021. Since then, it has been declining since investors and resellers have been leaving collectible markets like Magic. When it comes to gameplay, it just gets a tad bit of Commander play. Force of Will, the Alliance's copy down $211 to $78.71. The Eternal Masters copy goes down $253 to $67.18. This is a staple in Legacy, Vintage, and Commander, but the previous copies of this card cooled down since the reprintings in Dominaria Remastered. Yawgmoth's Will from Urza Saga down $265 to $185.76. This reserve list card also hit an all-time high in the beginning of 2021, but has been declining for the reasons I mentioned earlier. It does get some Vintage and a little Commander play. Pearl Medallion from Tempest down $268 to $37.38. Great card for mono white commander decks, but players are steering clear right now since this cycle feels like it's overdue for a reprint, and some think we could see it in Commander Masters. Mana Crypt, the Mystery Booster copy down $271 to $171.99. Remember, Wizards just sold more Mystery Booster Convention Edition booster boxes in the Festival in a Box Minneapolis 2023 Secret Lair, so many more copies of Mana Crypt are getting into circulation. Some also think this could be one of the cards in Commander Masters, time will tell. It's in a lot of Vintage builds and a big Commander card in many different decks. Mantle of the Ancients goes down $273 to $659. This is from the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms or of Courage Commander deck. Recently this got a bump as some Commander players wanted to put it in builds around a card from the Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves Secret Lair, Zenk Paladin Unbroken. Now it is retracting as the market moves on, and some players think it could see a reprint either in the Commander Masters main set or in the Enduring Enchantments Commander deck that is coming out with that product. Preacher, this one is down 280 to 5128. This reserve list card also sees a tad bit of commander play and hit an all-time high of almost $190 in April 2021. Goblin Wizard down 306 to 6127, another reserve list card that hit its height in early 2021. This also sees a little commander play, but continues to decline as the collector's market changes. Oran Frostfang, this is the one from the list. It goes down 341 to 2502, retracting after some recent increases that came when the card began to see some additional commander play. Now it is cooling off. Gilded Drake, this one's down 341 to 244.16. This reserve list card sees some commander play, but it's been cold. It has now dropped to about where it was in December of 2020. Like we've been discussing, many speculators and resellers have been moving out of collectible markets, not just Magic. A Trek Separator's Voice, the Double Masters copy down $2 to $29.09. The Commander Anthology Volume 2 copy, that one only comes in foil, down $340 to $46.21. And the Commander 2016 copy, which also only comes in foils, down $344 to $29.91. So this is a wildly popular commander. It's in the 99 and some builds there too, but previous copies of this have been cold since Atraxa was reprinted in the March of the Machine Multiverse Legends subset. Necropotence, this is the Deckmasters Garfield vs. Finkel copy. It only comes in foil. It goes down $369 this week to $80.03. Necropotence is found in Vintage Doomsday and in several commander builds. This was reprinted not too long ago in the Secret Lair 30th Anniversary Countdown kit though. Arachnogenesis down 385 to 57.06. So this card has yet to be reprinted, and it recently spiked when players were thinking about building commander decks around Shelob, Child of Ungoliant. Now it is retracting some as more copies have entered the marketplace because of the dramatic spike, but it is getting a lot more commander play. Mox Opal from Scars and Meriden. Now this copy's going down, but there's another copy moving up, which we're going to see in just a few moments. This one though, down 386 to 78.33. You see this in Legacy Painter, 8 cast and more. In fact, there's a new Legacy deck called One Ring 8 Key that runs the One Ring, Manifold Key, Voltaic Key, and typically 4 copies of this. We'll have to see how the build does long term there. In Vintage, you see Mox Opal and Paradoxical Outcome. It's a very popular commander card too in several builds. It's even getting some additional play now in Gandalf the White decks. Solarian Academy down 420 this week to 109.99. This hit a high of about $325 in February of 2021. Now though, it continues to decline again for the reasons we mentioned earlier. It does see vintage play though. Fourth Eolingas, this is down 487 this week to 15.95. It is from the Riders of Rohan commander deck, and we saw it spiking aggressively last week. Why? Well, because it was already seeing play in Legacy and Vintage, since it can give you Monarch very quickly with this and a 1-drop creature. In Legacy, it's been in Boros Initiative. That deck has been performing well. In Vintage, I've seen it in Jeskai Control. And it's been getting commander play too, and not just in builds around cards from Riders of Rohan. I've seen it in decks like Aragorn the Uniter from the main set, for example. Not surprising though to see this stabilize down some after the extreme spike we saw last week. We'll have to see where this lands in the coming weeks. Here's another revised dual land. Savannah from Revised is down 506 to 328.99. Lion's Eye Diamond down 510 to 474.90. This reserve list card continues to retract and is now back to its price point from the beginning of 2021. Good Legacy and Commander card though. Underground Sea from Revised is down 582 to 717.99. Survival of the Fittest from Exodus down $694 to $222.96. Decent commander card, but it has been declining since its peak of $375 in April 2021. Like I said, there's just much less activity around many of the reserve list cards compared to a few years ago. Badlands from Revised down $865 to $379.97. Mox Diamond from Stronghold down $1173 to $614.52. This reserve list card is retracting after some recent increases. It does get a good amount of Legacy and Commander play. Taiga from Revised down $1781 to $350. Tundra from Revised down $2368 to $451. And the last card going down today is Volcanic Island from Revised down $47.36 to $711.78. Now for the cards going up, Reanimate. This is the new copy from the Hosts of Mordor Commander deck. It goes up $217 to $1219 as it tries to find its price point. This has been getting more legacy play since the Drechsler Grand Unifier came out. It's in Reanimator, Death Shadow, Oops All Spells. It also gets a lot of commander play, not even counting index around cards from the Hosts of Mordor. You see it in some other new commander builds around cards from the main set, like Sauron the Dark Lord, Smeagol Helpful Guide, Saruman of Many Colors. Plus, this gets a little pre-modern play, and that format has had a larger impact on prices lately. Arcane Denial. This is the copy from the Hosts of Mordor commander deck as well, trying to find its price point too. It's up 224 to 460. Big commander card, and again, not just in builds around cards from the Hosts of Mordor. It's in several decks around cards from the main set too, like Sauron the Dark Lord, Saruman of Many Colors, Tom Bombadil. Plus, it gets pre-modern play as well, and it was discussed in a Nitpicking Nerds video this week too. Phyrexian Tower from Urza Saga. It goes up 224 to 32.99. Getting more commander play now thanks to Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. It is in builds around cards like Smeagol Helpful Guide, Sauron the Dark Lord, and the Balrog Durin's Bane. This also sees play in Legacy Nick Fit and gets a little pre-modern play too. Here's that other copy of Mox Opal. The Modern Masters 2015 copy is up 237 this week to 79.73. The Black Gate is up 264 to 980. Another card from the Hosts of Mordor commander deck. Sure, this is in builds around cards from there again, but it's also in plenty of other commander decks old and new, including Sauron the Dark Lord, Frodo Sauron's Bane, and more. I've also seen some trying this in Legacy Death Shadow. We'll have to see if that sticks. Gaia's Cradle from Urza Saga goes up $275 to $895. Now, small percentage increase here, but I think the real story is the card is relatively stable now around this price point. You see this in Legacy Elves, sometimes Maverick, Vintage it's in Hogak Vine. It's also in a variety of commander decks, including a new one, Aragorn the Uniter, and it gets some pre-modern play as well. City of Traders goes up 305 to 317.48. This is rebounding a little after some recent losses. It gets a lot of legacy play in several decks, including Painter and Mono Red Prison, and there are 4 copies of this in the new Legacy 1 Ring 8 Key build. Additionally, you see it in a variety of commander decks, and it gets some pre-modern play too. Grim Monolith. This goes up 346 this week to 263.45. It continues rebounding after dipping a couple weeks ago. In Legacy, this is in Mystic Forge combo, and now there are 4 copies of this in the new Legacy 1 Ring 8 Key deck. Vintage, you see this in Paradoxical Outcome, and it is a solid commander card in lots of different decks. Canoptic Wraith is up 371 to 496. This is from the Warhammer 40k Necron Dynasties commander deck, and of course it is getting more commander play now because it is a Wraith. Some are getting it to upgrade the Hosts of Mordor commander deck, but most want it for a fresh commander build around Lord of the Nazgul. It is also, though, seeing play in commander decks around a couple cards from the main set, Sauron the Necromancer, and Witch King of Angmar. Cavern Horde Dragon is next. It goes up 407 to 23.40. This is from the Hosts of Mordor commander deck. Sure, it's seeing play in builds around cards from there, but it's also in a lot of other commander decks old and new, like Sauron the Dark Lord, Vazikeen Negotiator, and much more. Look, it's a dragon that can make treasure tokens, so I'm sure it's going to continue to see a lot of play in commander. Birth of the Imperium from the Warhammer 40k Forces of the Imperium commander deck. It is going up 625 this week to 794. It is getting more commander play now because it is in those saga builds around Tom Bombadil. In fact, it was in the upgraded version of the Tom Bombadil deck that was featured in the Tolarian Community College video we mentioned earlier. In a shocking turn of events, our last card today is Lord of the Nazgul. It goes up 641 this week to 1493. Say it with me now, this is from the Hosts of Mordor commander deck. And sure, yeah, it sees play in a lot of builds around cards from that deck, but so many want to use this as a commander for their new Wraith decks. It is, though, also in the 99 of other commander decks old and new, like Sauron the Dark Lord and Saruman of Many Colors. Alright, that's going to do it for this pretty long episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. A lot to talk about this week, as you can see now. The Commander Masters preview season is about to begin. There's going to be a lot of turbulence in the market going forward. Cards that get reprinted, they're going to go down. Cards that don't get reprinted, they could go up. We'll be here to keep track of all of it for you, but until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.